Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 45.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am excited today because if you've been enjoying the series that we've been doing, we've been looking for entrepreneurs out there, that have been in the trenches, doing it, starting with a dream, making it happen so that they can develop cash flow in various different ways. Because I know many people say things like, hey, cash flow, that means you must do real estate. That's not always the case. And hopefully you've seen entrepreneur after entrepreneur take their own idea and hear some of the same things, some of the same lessons, but at the end of the day, still be able to create cash flow with things that they are overly excited about. Now, for those of you that are dead set, you are determined to make real estate happen, let's remember that if you go over to learninvestingnow.com, that's again, learninvestingnow.com, you have the ability to take advantage of a free course that's just sitting there for you. Most of you already know. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen to episode 1 as well. That's kind of what I do. I develop cash flow. I develop real estate assets, be that mortgages and notes and or single family houses or multifamily buildings, as well as commercial real estate. The point is everybody starts somewhere. Learninvestingnow.com is where you could start today, and it's completely free. So go have some fun with that. The point is, though, cash flow is king, and being able to create it with your ideas and learning how to put systems in place, learning the skill sets that are necessary to make that happen is exactly what this show is about, and why you're here is to learn it so that you can become a better investor of your time and all of your resources. Today, I've got with me another gentleman who's been able to do exactly that. Many of you probably even already know his name. The point is, he's here, and that's what's exciting for me. What's exciting is that it doesn't matter what your passion is. What does matter is that you can make it happen, and you never know where the inspiration is going to come from. And in fact, that's an interesting story in and of itself. What I want you to do is I want you to listen and hear how you are just like every other entrepreneur, and definitely like you have passions. That's all I'm trying to say. You have passions, and with those passions, we're going to go out there and help you do more of what it is that you want to do in this particular year. So let's hear what Mr. Jermaine Griggs has to say. Jermaine, are you there?
I am here, Jay, and glad to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited that you're here because, when I read stories about you and hear how it's like business starts more from a passion and a happenstance than definitely a direction sometimes. And I just reading about the information that I've been able to learn about you in the short time that we've known each other has been interesting and fun. But for the benefit of those who may not know, tell us a little bit more about Jermaine Griggs, what he's been able to do, and how you even got started. I think that's really, really key for people to understand.
Absolutely. And first, I got to say, this interview is historic, and I've done a lot of them, but I've never been interviewed by someone of the same name. So I'm going to burst the bubble. If people don't know your real name, Jay Massey.
Oh, you just messed it up. Yep. You got it now. That's
go
good.
by Jay. You go by Jay, but if they figure it out, they'll figure it out. I'm being interviewed by someone of the same name. But anyway, my story starts, in 1970s, where my grandma was on The Price is Right, and she actually won a piano. And this would be a piano that's in our family for years. I mean, this piano's been there for 40 years. And I'd be born in the 80s, a whole decade later, and I would experience my grandma playing this piano. We were a church-going family, so most of the songs are good old soulful gospel songs, and I'd get out the pots and pans and beat on them. But one day, I got on the piano, and I found that I had a natural inclination or knack to pick out songs. I was like picking out chords without a teacher, without anyone showing me. I put my fingers down and skipped every other white note, and it sounded like music. And I would go to teach myself how to play Disney songs and would then start playing in the church. And my passion as a little kid, we're talking 8, 9 years old, was playing music by ear, just by listening. And I wouldn't know that years later that would be my business into adulthood, several decades later. But I would enjoy teaching kids in the neighborhood, playing for churches and choirs, and just kind of built up the name as this little wonder kid, bring your boombox to church and he'll play the song, he'll play it right there. And that was my reputation. Meanwhile, I don't know if you read the book I know you've read it, but your listeners, the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about burning desire. Right. And that's just something that I had at an early age. We lived in the inner cities of Long Beach and some would call the projects, and we didn't have a lot of money. We were church-going, loving family, functional in that sense, but, poor. We didn't have no money, as Mom would say. And but I just had a burning desire. So at 12, I sold Avon. I've sold prepaid legal. I've sold stationery. There was in the back of the National Geographic books, there was always this organization advertising to kids. It was a kids sales organization called Olympia. I remember calling that number, and I would sell stationery door to door,
Nice.
In the inner city. And then I figured out leverage. I know that's a word you like.
Yep.
I said, wait, they're giving me $2 an item. I could recruit other kids in the projects in the community. I'll give them $1 an item. I'll keep the other $1. And now I've got agents out there working for me. So that was life. That was just life. And I had a supportive mom who signed me up when the Avon lady came, bought me the keyboard, took me to church, drove me to my piano students. And that would lead at 17 years old to saying, hey, could I really take this music to the next level, these music activities? And that's when I launched HearAndPlay.com, which is a music site that teaches musicians how to play music by ear. And we've entered over 100 countries, and we have hundreds of thousands of people on our newsletter and students among that group. And we teach now piano, guitar, drums, singing, organ, and you name it. We teach people how to focus on the beauty of listening to music, the patterns and things like that. And I've been doing that now going on 14 years. Close to, this will be my 14th year. We registered in 2000, so we're going our 14th year online. And it's allowed me to, not only from a passion standpoint, because music is my passion, but I've been able to turn it into a real business, a 7-figure business that has made all my wildest dreams come true.
I love it. I love it. I love, so there are so many things that I hope you guys heard in that. I mean, now I'm just going to ask what I think to be the obvious question. Of all the skill sets that you would say is most important to be able to go from idea to actual business, what skill set would that be?
Well, in my personal story, I would say sell, the ability to sell. So all of that door-to-door training I got, all of that training I got selling Avon and stationery and talking to people at church and being put in those positions at a very young age and building that confidence to be in front of people and that confidence to hear the word no and a rejection and that sort of thing, and now to let that roll off me like nothing. I mean, that was very important. I'll tell anyone, if you can sell, if you can write, if you can communicate, any of the communications, and do that comfortably, you'll set yourself up to be ahead.
Totally. And the funny thing about that is I had a feeling you were going to say that, because it is the most important skill. It's, first of all, the first and most expensive one to leverage out. I mean, I can get, CPAs and accountants and all the other stuff that I need, but to get a salesperson, that's going to cost a lot of money. And it's usually best that you become that salesperson. I had a feeling you were going to say that. That's exactly how I feel. In fact, I tell all my kids, they ask me for money, like all kids do, right? And I tell them, my response is the same. I tell them, you can have everything you want. All you have to do is develop a product or service and learn how to sell it. That's my answer. And anytime they do that, I pay them. And then therefore they have a product or service. They learned how to sell it, and then they move forward. And that's resulted in my oldest, now she doesn't ask for money. She just goes and gets her own materials, and she runs and crochets things and sells it online. And it's just like, awesome. This is great, because learning how to sell. Oh my God, you were so right.
That's awesome. I mean, what you taught your kids how to do is create value and sell it. Get money in exchange for value, and that's what it's all about. Whether you're doing real estate, whether you're doing teaching people how to do stuff like me, or anything in between, creating value, like she's creating stuff and selling it. Exchange.
Exactly.
And that's what I believe. Well.
Yeah, value for value. And the funniest thing though is I only imagine how many times I've seen like The Price is Right or a game show and wonder if the people actually get those items, but yet
they do.
In your case, they do. That's so funny. That's awesome though, because that was the beginning. No one knew, and that's the thing. So here's the thing. I often find that there are a lot of people out there who are waiting to understand how everything works before they get started. Share with me a little bit, how on earth did your business evolve to the point that it's at? I mean, did you have like a 50-page business plan and said, hey, I'm going to do this, and this, or how did it all come together?
Right, and that's a great question. I certainly believe if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, but I've never been the 50-page business plan type at the same time. So that's the MBA stuff. I mean, I went to University of California, Irvine, and I was in marketing classes, and we even won the marketing competition, but those plans have never made their way into my real business operations. But what has was first getting started, making a decision. So you got to be in the game to, catch a pass. So that's the first thing, being in a position. What do they say, the definition of luck? I think where opportunity meets preparation, well, you got to have your side of that taken care of. And I was out there doing stuff as a youth. I was making things happen, in the capacity that I had to do so. So when I was already out there teaching kids, I think a parent told me, you should sell your workbooks. That was the first thing I did. I saw leverage in my situations. So I was teaching kids the same thing. And you may say in your business operations, what are you doing the same thing for repeatable things that are manual that can be automated or leveraged? So I was teaching the same music scales and chords. So the first thing I did, I said, I got to put this into a leverageable form. And that's when I got in Microsoft Word. We were taking typing classes back then in school. Learned how to do that, got pretty proficient, and I made workbooks, a 50-page workbook. So it wasn't a 50-page business plan, but my product was 50 pages. And that was my first product, The Secrets to Playing Piano by Ear. I had a workbook, and I would eventually turn that into audio CDs and other modalities and things like that. And the first thing I did, I plopped up a website. And I guess intuition told me you need a picture and you need a couple sentences. And so, because that's what I saw in Sky Mall and brochures, it was always a picture and a couple sentences. And so I launched HereMake.com with that motto, waiting for the world to meet me, and the world didn't meet me. But we eventually got to the point where we were making a couple sales. So this was around, I think I was 17 years old, senior year in high school. We're making like a couple $100, couple sales a month. And my wife, who was my girlfriend then, she would help me go buying the books. But my turning point came when, and you've already asked me this question, but I said there's got to be a better way. And I remember this show. That was a show title for Donnie Deutsch, I think, The Big Idea. It was there's got to be a better way.
Right.
And I started searching Google for sales and marketing advice because I'm a big believer, especially when it comes to product concepts and business ideas. If you've got one buyer, and I was getting several buyers a month, to the tune of $300, I mean, at least a dozen of them. If you've got one buyer, or you've got somebody who's digging you or into your concept, now we're in a global marketplace. You can find more like them. And I didn't think for 1 second the customers I was getting was an anomaly. So I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be more people out there with the needs and desires for what I've got. And so I started searching that, and I came across a guy named Corey Rudel, and he was my first mentor. He's not with us. He died in a Porsche accident. He's the guy they've been talking about in that actor who died. They died in the same Porsche Carrera, but Corey died in 2005. But unfortunately, he was the founder of Internet Marketing Center. He owned InternetMarketing.com, just to put it into perspective.
Wow.
And yeah, and this was in the turn of like 2000, 1999. And what he taught me in that course was how to sell through print. That was my turning point. It wasn't like, learning how to get more traffic or advertising and all the internet lingo, but he taught me how to sell in print. And it's the same thing as selling in person. I would imagine it's like the same process showing up in somebody's front door, trying to take over their note, or, selling a home, or, in your market. It's the same process, right? And he taught me how to capture attention, and he taught me how to convey what I'm doing in benefits and advantages and features, and how to build up my credibility where there was no credibility. 17 years old, how do I do that? How to use testimonials and case studies. And so I went from like a picture of my book on this dirty brown carpet in our apartment. I didn't have enough sense to, make the picture look better, and 4 sentences, to a long sales page. And it was such a new concept to me. And I showed a few people around me. They said, no one's ever going to read that. But my turning point, I put up that website, that new one, with that long letter. And the next day I woke up with $1,100 in sales. From, at the time, I had a Yahoo group of 700 people. So that was a big deal to me. That was 700 people who before said, this guy's cool, I'll stick around in this group, but I ain't going to buy anything from him. The next day, one sales letter different, sent out a little announcement to him, hey, we've updated the site. And I woke up. This was in 2002 was my turning point. I woke up with $1,100 in sales, and that was my turning point. That's when I knew that, man, I think I could probably do this for the rest of my life. I think this, this law thing that I'm in school for, I don't know. I think the music thing could actually work. And that month we would make $8,000 that month. It wouldn't continue at $1,100 a day, but it would come down to, an average of what I was making a month, we were now making a day. $300 here, $200 there, just because I changed my sales process, my mentality of selling. So it is very appropriate that you mention sales, and I'll be saying that in my rocking chair. Sales, a knowledge of sales, knowledge of persuasion, knowledge of communication, marketing. Those are the things that really make a business. Sad to say, product is great. Product can be duplicated. It's the marketing sales process that if you really want to be a success, put your focus there.
Totally. You are speaking so many volumes of wisdom. It's amazing. I mean, I love how you're talking about repeatable processes. Every business thrives on a repeatable process. That's what purchasing property is. That's what making notes and developing assets are. It's a repeatable process. Now, it involves lots of people because it's real estate and all this other stuff, but you still have repeatable processes. What I really like, though, is that you took street knowledge in the sense of observing the world around you to figure out what you needed to do. You were like, well, I see a picture and a few short sentences, so clearly that must be what I must do. I must put a picture and a few short sentences. And the most important thing that I hope people heard in that little section was you took action, period. You're rewarded for taking action. Now, you're not always rewarded in the way you want to be rewarded, but you get a reward. And I'm sitting here thinking, if I woke up and I had $1,100, the first thing I'd want to do is go right back to sleep and wake up again and see what would happen. But I like the idea. I mean, there's just, you never know when that's going to happen. You never know. But the one thing it sounds like that's been consistent for you is that you've been open to other people's ideas, and that has played a role in expanding your business. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I've never been the reinvent the wheel type of person. Nowadays, I'm very innovative in our marketing, but that's after I got the fundamentals, right? In music, they say, learn the rules, learn the fundamentals. When you get real good, throw the rules away. You can throw it all out. But it takes learning the rules to get to that proficiency, to get to that level where you could just flow and do your thing. And that's also apparent in this 4 stages of learning we learn, right? Unconscious. Right. Incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. Kids don't know they need to know how to tie their shoes, and then they learn that they don't know how to tie their shoes, right? That's what conscious incompetence. And then there's, I know how to tie my shoes. That's conscious competence. And then there's, man, I don't even know that I know this stuff so well. And I've gotten to that point in certain things, and you get there through practice. Malcolm Gladwell talked about the 10,000 hour rule and outliers, right? And so you get to that level. But yeah, absolutely. If I could pay someone, or if I could align with someone who's already done that work to get to that level, and I can shave years off of it, I'm definitely a proponent for that. And if you look where I'm at right now, I'm in my office, and I don't even see walls in my office. All I see is bookshelves that go all the way around the darn thing, books that I probably couldn't read in a lifetime. But I'd rather buy a book than a DVD. So people say, you got so many books, you can't read these. I say, well, it's better than DVDs. So if I can learn through osmosis, I'll try. I'll be crazy enough to think that something's happening here. But
Totally.
yeah, I totally.
I agree. I mean, and that's I wish, I hope, people are catching it. It's not that there's so much of business and life and growing in this way that's caught, not necessarily taught. And you don't know when or where that teacher is going to appear. The only thing you can be certain of is that you don't know it all. And other people have figured certain pieces out, and you can take those pieces, put them together, and create something brand new. One of the things that I'm often challenged with is people come to me and they say, hey, Jay, how do I buy this super huge commercial complex and do it with none of my money or credit and all this other stuff? And I'm like, you got to learn the basics first. And then later you can go and add your ideas to it. And it's just, and it's refreshing for me to hear that same principles are always consistent when it comes to success. And that's one of the greatest things about learning to develop businesses, is that it's not overly complicated. And in fact, at times it's relatively simple. It's just mastering the same simple things repeatedly over and over and over and over again. I'm kind of curious though, what are some of the most important lessons you would say that you've learned in building HereAndPlay.com?
Well, in building Here and Play, so I guess from the time where I had that $1,100 experience, after that, after I learned sales and marketing, then it came putting it into a system. So I figured, hey, well, I got to be generating leads. And no matter what business you're in, you've got to generate leads, prospects, people that can turn into customers or clients or people on the other end doing business with you. So we turned to lead generation, but not just generating leads in a haphazard way, but an automated process. So what do we do when we get the lead? Some people are, especially these days, people go viral and, can get eyeballs, can get attention to their website, but they don't have a process in place to take those leads and convert them into, buyers, people that want to do business with you, who are able, ready, and willing to do business with you. So at Here and Play, what we learned was to attract people with like a video series, and you do very similar at Income Diary, right? To attract them with some kind of value, in exchange for their information. And it works the same way in real estate, right? Or the local dentist, right? People say, well, I'm not in a business conducive to information. And oftentimes that's never been the case. We're all in businesses that are conducive to the exchange of information, especially in the early points of the relationship. For a dentist, it could be the 7 danger signs, to watch out for when you hire your next dentist. You could take the consumer advocacy approach. You could do that in any business. If you sell high-end art, 7 things to look for, when buying art, spot these 7 mistakes, stuff like that. So I took that approach, and now I started building a massive list. And I would say that was something, because I had a 700-person list that I had managed to amass from August 2000 to around March 2002. 700 people in that 18-month span, and that was fine. And I did that by accident by creating a Yahoo group. So it wasn't even my own list. It was just I was the moderator of this public group that I had privileges to email. Mm-hmm. So then I turned to building my own list, and now building a list of qualified leads and prospects. And I think that's been the key, and literally an ATM machine, to be able to go to that list with offers, to go to that list with announcements of new products and services, to go to that list for research. You tell me, I don't want to assume this is what you want to learn or this is right. Where you want us to go next. You tell me, surveying and things like that. So building a list was probably my next step, and doing it in a systematic way where we exchange information for value and growing it over time.
Absolutely. Agreed. And that's the very same those are the basics of real estate and just developing cash flow for any business. I mean, yeah, I don't care if you want to buy and hold, you got to build a list of renters. Yeah, if you want to wholesale, you've got to build a list of sellers and a list of buyers. If you want to raise private capital, you got to build a list of investors. There's the list is key. The database is what I tend to call it is key. You're always adding people to the database. I love the fact that you've got automated ways of doing it. Share with us some of those things that might you think that could have a way of helping the person who's possibly looking at getting involved in any business or real estate, et cetera, to begin to build their list. What are some of those super secret Jermaine Griggs only techniques that we get to know about?
Absolutely. Right. So building a list, we call them like list magnets, lead magnets rather, PDF reports, any kind of reference charts in real estate or any kind of tools that you can make easier. If you're trying to build an investors list, well, what are all the different websites investors tend to go to have to figure out this or calculate that or syndicate or, synthesize this information with that? Could you build that one-page reference tool? Well, how do they access it? It's free, obviously, but, hey, give me your name, email, maybe even fill out, a few survey choices letting me know what type of investor you are, what kind of deals you look for. But you lead with value, right? You lead with some kind of resource. You notice a lack. You notice that you've got to bookmark 7 different sites to be able to figure out this one particular problem or scenario. And you guys would probably know where that makes sense more than me in that market. But it works the same way. For me, music teachers, we have to build a list of those if we want to do joint ventures or we want to do partnerships, if I want them to advertise my courses. So I remember building a tool that you could go in and, because online we teach people how to play chords and stuff like that. So I built this little $50 tool I got someone to do on Odesk, where you can get virtual workers all over the world, and you could just type in C, E, G, A flat, right, musical notes, and it would highlight the keyboards, and then it would give you code, and you can go put it on your blog. That's a tool, an easy tool. They don't need Photoshop. They don't need to have paint or paintbrush. They don't have to learn any of that. My tool, but underneath the piano, it's going to say Hear and Play with a link back to my site. So those are other lead generation ways that you can make systematic, right? But just for your end user, for your prospect, PDFs, video series, podcasts, audios, teleseminar recordings, any kind of info base works. We've also been experimenting with giveaways. The easiest way for a dentist to build a list of, local leads, give away a year's of Crest, I don't know, Colgate, an electric toothbrush, and then give your patients the opportunity to pass it on. With social media, it's never been easier to do that kind. We didn't really have all those ways to get our messages out there and to leverage friends and families and things like that. But building leads, but the key thing is not just building a list, but keeping that list active. That's the hard part, right? Or at least the part that people miss. You can build a list, you can compile a list, with different unique ideas and presenting value. But the key is, how do you keep that list hot? And you do that through automated follow-up, right? But it appears personal. So it appears that you're just checking in with them. If you've got a list of investors, it may be like a newsletter or some kind of digest that you send out with some local news or listings or some kind of feed that you can tap into and, get it out to them. Or it could be tips, for my end user, it's obvious, we keep up with them with music-related advice, blog posts, subsequent video lessons. But the goal is obviously to move them along through the sales process, whatever that may be. For you, it's different. For me, it's, buying my first course and then subsequent purchases after that. But following up with them automatically. And I remember when I discovered that, it was in 2003. I said, you mean I can craft messages and I could queue them up in a system. We called them autoresponders back there. And your AWebers they're autoresponders. But now people have moved on to CRM, like sites like Infusionsoft that really bring that whole thing into a bigger platform where you can manage the customers there, you can sell them, you can transact the orders, you can do all of it in this one contact relation management program. And so I remember when I discovered that, man, so I queued up 10 emails in advance, and every 3 days I would chime in with a tip and then a little link to buy my course. And I remember every day I could go into my statistics, and I could say, wow, I got 10 sales from email number 2. I got 20 sales from email number 3. Wow, even email 10 is bringing in sales. These sales were working for me, instead of me working in my business. So that's the difference in, I think, Michael Gerber in E-Myth. He said, you want to be working on your business instead of in. Just the difference of a 2-letter word, on, in. And I think when you create systems, and whatever you do, you create systems that are repeatable and duplicatable, then you can look at your time and you can say, my time's being well spent because I'm creating a system that I never have to create again. I can work it. Yeah, we work it. Or I could put someone in place to work it. But my time is usually on building systems that then can go on and live without me. So I've got emails and campaigns that I'm playing basketball with my buddies, and they're like, yeah, man, I heard, your jazz DVD's coming out tomorrow. How can you afford to be playing basketball with us into the evening? And I'm like, man, I wrote that 5 years ago, but I'm glad it's coming out for you tomorrow. Buy it, please. But that's the power of automation and leverage.
Exactly. This is so awesome. That's exactly what I love. Now, everyone is hearing, we're hearing, the Jermaine of today. What I want to know is, how did you handle the mental battle, the mental struggle? You see yourself one way. We all grow up. We see ourselves one way. Society tells us we're this, so therefore we can't be that. Whatever that may be. How did you address that? Before you answer that, by the way, you might be the only person I have run into who recommends more books faster than I do, and I'm loving it right now because I'm always I've got like 4 or 5 books for everybody, and I just want to take a moment and say, everyone, every book you've heard him mention is a book that I have definitely read. It's in our virtual book club. It's there for a reason. Go get it. Don't wait for me to say, go get that book. Just do it, because, oh my gosh, he's so accurate. But tell us about the Jermaine that had to deal with all the reframing of his own identity, if you will.
Sure. It's actually related to what you just said. Books. I mean, books are a major component of that change of mindset, and it's always it's a journey, not a destination. I mean, the things that my mind tries to convince me of these days certainly different than 15 years ago, but just because I'm in a different place, different environment. But you're always going to have that doubt and that self-talk, and you can overcome that by seeing examples of other people who had or were in that same position that you're currently in, and reading of their overcoming of it. That's probably the best way to do it. They even say it like, if you got a kid who's scared of dogs or something like that, like my kids aren't scared of anything. It's actually me that's scared of the dogs. That's the crazy thing. My kids get me in so much trouble with dogs. I'm like, don't go over there. Oh, man, he went over there. But anyway, if kids are scared of dogs, the best thing you can do is put them in front of a video with another kid their age that looks like them playing with dogs, and soon they'll let up, and or put them in an environment, but let them watch that dog playing with another kid, to see that kid's interaction. So that's one of the big things. I get really inspired. Not necessarily, I read the Donald Trumps. Don't get me wrong. I love the big outliers like that, but at the same time, there's something about the story that says, well, that person already started rich or something like that. So I try to find the stories of the people, and this is just one part of your library, but find the stories of the people that started like you, like broker than broke. If that was my case, I want to find those stories, because those are the ones that really resonate with me. So that person did it. They didn't have a dime to their name, and they figured it out, and that kept me motivated and kept me driven. So biographies, I love reading biographies. And just inundating myself in books and knowledge. And you said, you made the joke of me spitting out different books, but you can do that when you read books. When you read books, there's value in just synthesizing a bunch of books, to be able to be a walking bookstore and say, you know what, that's true. A lot of people, they have knowledge, but it's just based on their own sitting back thinking about things, and that's great. But I like to bring in other references and things like that. And when you can do that, you definitely become a valuable resource to other people, because you can do it from an analytical side. And I can say, hey, I do believe this, and then there is an author that talked about this, but then there's another author I've read that talked about the diametric opposite of that. Right. And somewhere in the middle can be the path that you tread. So there's definitely knowledge in that. And just going back, surrounding myself in positivity. I remember, in the Office Depot. I don't know if there's an Office Depot where you guys are listening out there, but an office store. I used to run back there. Other kids wanted Game Boys and, PS2s. I used to go and plop my 13-size shoes on that cherry wood office desk, and I used to sit back in that chair, and I said, this is what I want. That file cabinet over there is looking really good. And that sounds weird, a kid just wanted an office. But
not to me.
Right, you just made that way. But, yeah, those were my goals. And hanging around the right people, that was a decision I had to make. Now, I was in the inner city, and there's a lot of pressures, and there's a lot of things, because of just how the world it works and how these things are designed. But, I could have been a gangbanger very easily. I could have just looked next door for that. I could have sold drugs. That's right across the yard. That was easy. I could have, did anything in between. I could have, but I saw a different light. I saw where I wanted to be, and I read a quote, and it said, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. And I said, I said, well, first of all, how do you average that out? I really, I take things literal sometimes. So I said, okay, I'm going to take a 1 to 10 rating system. I said, okay, well, if I've got all 10s around me, 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 divided by 5, that's 10. Okay. Well, what happens when I just mix one, and I'm actually going to do the math, because I'm actually interested in seeing what that number is too. So if I got a 10 plus a 10 plus a 10 plus a 10, but I mix just one person who's a 1, that's 41 divided by 5. That brings me down to an 8 already, just one person. So imagine what 2 people that, good. What does that do? I don't even want to do the math. I'm guessing that brings you down even more. So that helps. You can't underestimate the power of influence. I was reading another book, The Compound Effect, the publisher of Success magazine, I believe. What's his name? I think it's Darren Hardin. Yeah, that's him. And, and nothing new there, but he's talking about ways that influence you, associations, disassociations, environment, right? Those things are important. So, if you're not in a place where, it's conducive to productivity, get in a place, get yourself to a library. There's not going to be too much rowdiness going on at a library, right? So a lot of people talk about, I want to be in the next level, but they can't hear what the next level is because they're at the party. How can you find the peace and be directed by your soul and spirit to find that passion when it's just too much noise around? So get in that environment, get around those good people. If you can't find them, Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill can be your mentor. You can't find Benjamin Franklin's got some stuff out there. How he tried to, figure out things 10,000 times. He can be your mentor on persistence. So I found a mentor for everything I've wanted to learn, either in person, if not in person, here, dead, alive, gone. You can find it. So there's no excuses. And oftentimes this knowledge comes $10 at a time. And now with the internet, oftentimes free.
Oh, man. And you just got to put in the effort consistently over time. I tell people, and I try not to overwhelm them, but I tell them I typically consume on an average a minimum of 2 books a month. And you add that up over a number of years, it's a lot of books. And it becomes, because people ask me, what book should I read? And I end up doing the same thing like you're doing right now, saying this one and that one and that one. And because there's so many little nuggets that you get from each one and each other person's, life experience that begins to add to your own experience, and you can mix it up and make it better. And you covered something that I think it's very key. When I'm speaking in front of people, or sometimes in our mastermind groups, we'll go over the fact that the world will offer us excuses. it'll offer us excuses, and we'll take the easiest one. Oftentimes we go, well, my neighbor next door, like you were saying, my neighbor next door is doing something that I know I shouldn't be doing, but it's clearly easier to go do that. So I'll just go do that. The world says I should be this way because I'm a certain size, or I like how you mentioned size 13 shoe. I'm a 15 over here. And I'm just like, yep, we're so much similar, but it's funny to me.
I'm 14 now. My feet grew though. I'm getting closer.
Oh, you don't want this. Trust me, you don't want this.
Yeah, 14 took me out of the regular department store. So I'm like, man, I got to order these things online now?
Yeah, welcome to my world. That's how I got introduced to Nordstrom, is they actually had shoes that you could get on a semi-regular basis that weren't orange and polka dotted and fit.
Right. But we'll hope we stay here. 14, yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah, but yeah, the world offers us excuses of all kinds. And I love how you just, this is just to say one thing. Environment trumps will all the time. Environment trumps will, and you create that environment. And if you have to create it through books, $10 at a time, like you said, that's fine. You can have access to that information. There's an entire library of information available. And as you said, especially now with the internet, it's free. I mean, case in point, when people go over to learninvestingnow.com, I've put up there at least 4 hours of video instruction of what to do, whatever the subject matter is, whether that I talk about wholesaling, whether I'm talking about raising private capital, whether I'm talking about multifamily buildings, building your team, it doesn't matter. It's 4 hours. To condense 4 hours, you take 4 hours and that's easily a book. I mean, yeah, you're like, man, 4 hours. How am I ever going to watch that? I don't know. You watch, Grey's Anatomy, you got time.
That's right.
So,
on my Facebook timeline, like another marketer and a business person, he said, I just finished 6 seasons of Breaking Bad. And, I mean, I've tried. Don't get me wrong. I've tried to get into TV series, and I've tried to sit there. I just can't do it. And that's no, you can have your off time and rest time, and that's fine. But I find rest, comfort, and joy in reading and learning. I mean, I couldn't even tell you who's in the Super Bowl or if there is a Super Bowl. Like, my neighbor just told me the 4 teams, and I caught the guy getting all rowdy at the end, but I'd rather a book. And that may be weird to people. That may strike them very odd. Big black guy, no sports. But,
right.
I'd rather big, good life. I mean, but that's just me.
No, it is not just you, my friend. I feel like a kindred spirit. I don't feel so alone anymore because, I didn't even know the Super Bowl was coming either. And then someone said, this is the game. The game for what? What do you mean? So, yeah, I totally understand. And the funny thing is, and now I'm wondering if this is true for you. Oftentimes, what happens for me is when I go to try to, relax or calm down, and I start developing a hobby, and it's not long before that hobby or that new interest becomes some sort of new business. It's how I started, taking photos. Like I'm a freelance photographer also for the Orange County Register. And I've got, some helicopters as well with cameras on them. And this is all fun stuff for me, but it starts to find its way into everything else I do inside of our marketing videos and pictures and all this other stuff. It's like nearly anything I touch becomes how can I grow and become more of this or that? And I'm just kind of curious if you have, I'll call it that same affliction, where it's like no matter what it is you touch, you want to try and understand everything about it, learn it, and just grow and become a bigger, better version of yourself.
I do, and it does seem like they turn into businesses. For me, it's been chess. Ever since my brother-in-law came over here and just beat me at chess 2 years ago and told me I would never win him, what did I do? I bought 10 books, how to beat your dad at chess, how to do this. And, I'm a Christian. I'm not supposed to bet, at least that's what my pastor told me. But I bet him. I put up a bet. I said, I'm going to beat you by the first of the year. This was like last year. and here's the wage. And I went to work. I started reading. I even hired someone to meet me at Starbucks,
Nice.
but I had already beat him before that game. So that consultant didn't even matter at that point because I was already on cloud nine. But yeah, I inundated myself in books and readings and tutorials. Finally beat him by a lot. Now I've beat him several times. I pretty much beat everybody I play in just a short span of time. So I get addicted to them. And then what's the next thing I do? I'm saying, let me go try to buy chesstutorials.com or, now let me go get, a betterchessgame.com. So, yeah, it's an addiction to then, your hobby then becomes another opportunity. And I think it goes to when your knowledge focuses around systems and processes, you can almost fill in the blank the product. That's why I don't necessarily get so excited about someone's product, especially when I'm doing consulting on the other end, because oftentimes, I'm not saying all the time, but oftentimes that's like replaceable or duplicatable, and someone else can come and do it better, faster, better, quicker, all the adjectives. But when you know the process of business, or you know the system, or you know how to duplicate something from one industry to the next, and not only did I do that with Hear and Play, but I've started a business consulting, marketing consultancy, and I built that business to a nice level as well. So when you can repeat it, it's addictive to be able to say, okay, this photography, I wonder if I could, turn this into something, And sometimes I got to stop myself and say, no, let's just keep this a hobby. Let's not turn this into a chess learning website by ear. Learn how to play chess by ear, or some kind of off play of it. But yeah, I find the same thing that happens to me. I get really passionate about the things that I get into, and I call it. My brother-in-law, I thought he wasn't listening to me, but he does listen to me. I call it the immersion. I'm sure I read it somewhere, but I say I immerse myself in stuff. And 2 years later, he was like, remember that technique you told me about immersion? I did that the other day, and, it worked out in this particular. So I just immerse myself in whatever it is I want to learn, and I do it at an accelerated pace, meaning, in the car, we turn it into, car university, what do they call it, windshield university. You can, if you got to drive an hour a day, do you know what an hour of information, an hour of Jay Massey's podcast, an hour of whatever you want to learn a day? And if that's just one way, 2 hours, do you know what that is compounded? We talk about the compound effect. Do you know what that is compounded over a month, a year, 10 years? That's why we can get on here and have this conversation. It's not overnight, but it's just years of reading and years of just being, and this is who we are. And that's what you want to develop. And when you become that person, you just attract opportunities, and your hobbies do become opportunities that you have to turn away sometimes.
I have the same affliction. I have to focus and say, no, I'm going to make a conscious decision that this will stay a hobby, because I've already had offers, especially when people see me flying the helicopters with the cameras on them. I've had offers for people to, can you come to my film set and do this and do, and I'm like, no, because I know what's going to happen.
Hey, to tell you the truth, though, I've heard about that business. I heard that's going to be a booming business. You may want to say yes to that one, man. I'm just saying.
Here we go again. I hear you. I hear you. Who knows? All I know is
Amazon.
Right? I know.
I'm sorry. Amazon's using the same technology to deliver our packages soon. Those drones in the air and. Yeah. So if you got a drone, I don't know, I might have to join you in that hobby.
Yeah, right, quote unquote. It's a hobby at the moment. It's lots of fun though. It's definitely fun. It's created some great photos. If some of the videos that we use for especially the stuff that we're doing internationally, and if it's created some great stuff. And that's over at investinginbelize.com. If you actually care, you want to see some of that. But those photos, those videos. It's just fun to do, and because you're right. Once you understand how it works, you can help other people, no matter the business. And that's been some of the things that I started doing with my coaching. Is people first approached me saying, "But you know real estate," and I'm like, "Trust me, it's business. It's the same." And at the end of the day, it's the same things. I may have to use different words. Instead of saying cash flow, we might say, EBITDA, for those of you who are the ones that, are so inclined with your business, you understand what I mean. We don't say net operating income, or maybe we do, but we just change the language. It means the same things. And that's what's amazing. Now, you mentioned a consultancy. Tell us a little bit more about, now that you've mastered how to teach us music and get that out there, what is this consultancy you speak of?
one business, and we were talking about this before, one business oftentimes begets another. I
Right.
mean, when you learn a business process or way of doing business, opportunity abounds. And so before Corey died, my first mentor, I actually approached him. I said, I've learned so much from you. And I read this in A Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I believe he got like his first internship, Robert Kiyosaki, by offering to work for free. However he did that, right? And then I also read Sean Puffy Combs doing the same thing, interning at a record label or something for free. So I was already making like six figures freshman year of college. The business was thriving, and I was happy. I was on top of the world. And so I approached Corey. I said, Corey, there's got to be more, to learn. And, hey, here are my strengths. I can speak. I've got church training in speaking, and I can type. I'm getting really good at websites. Maybe I can edit some copy or proofread, but I just want to be able to follow you around. Just link up with you here and there in exchange for whatever I can do. I mean, this is what I have to offer. And that sounds crazy, just approaching somebody at the time. Now, Corey, he had like an $8 million business. I would go on to be a $50 million business, and then after he died, it just, people don't have the same vision, and bam, sold it. And somebody else has internetmarketing.com these days. But back then, so to have the balls, for lack of a better word, to, approach him, I was naive, and he replied in so many words, well, we do have an opportunity. And I want to say that you had the same thing with a company you were involved with. I remember reading about you started speaking for them. Well, it was like the same thing for internetmarketing.com. I started speaking for them, and this kid from the inner city, I went to probably 30 states, in the span of a year, never having been, maybe we would go to Las Vegas for family trips, but I went to New York and Chicago, and he had me in the whole South and the Northwest and even overseas speaking on how to do internet marketing. And he would pay me. I would actually sell his training at the end of the seminar. So we would do all-day seminars. I would sell his training. And come to find out, in that span of 2 years, up until when he died, so many people who are famous these days, I say in the marketing circles and internet marketing, were in that audience. I wouldn't know it till these days. They come up to me and they're like, dude, big names in the internet marketing community.
Right.
Man, I was in your 2004 audience. So that paved the way for what I'm doing these days. So there's been moments and times where I've done that, and I've done marketing consultancy. But right now, I won a Marketer of the Year for Infusionsoft, which is a company that manages your sales systems and marketing and stuff like that. And so they're a big automation platform. And ever since then, I've gotten a lot of demand for people to consult. People want to consult. So I started automationclinic.com a couple years ago, and that's been my home to teach people how to automate their marketing, right? How to put those same kind of systems in place so the marketing's working while they're sleeping. How to build cash flow. Now, we don't call it cash flow, but we call it maybe continuity income.
Sure.
Or, the more used term, recurring income, or, things like that. But continuity income, how to start a membership site. If you've got something to share with the world, right, you've got a message, you've got an approach to something, and you don't have to, and people think, I don't have a degree in this or a degree in that. Well, let me ease some people's nerves. My degree, if you have to have it, you don't have to have a degree, but, I stuck it out because Grandma wanted me to do it, is in criminology, law, and society. The people are saying, so what kind of music degree do you have? You got your PhD? No, it's actually in something that I've long abandoned. It's not even in the niche that I'm in. Where's your marketing degree to be able to teach people how to market? No, you don't have to have one. It's really about real-world results. So if you can bake the best cookie or you can bake the best Thanksgiving dinner, I bet you ThanksgivingTips.com, if it's available. Everybody has knowledge and a gift to share. And so you can set up automated membership sites. So how most of our money that we get now comes from automated membership sites. So what that means is someone joins like the Jazz Training Center. They start at week 1. Now, when did I create week 1? I created week 1 3 years ago. But I've got Infusionsoft in my automated system saying, okay, Jay Massey is at week 1. We've charged Jay Massey's card, $40, and now we're going to release week's 1 content. He's going to go through it and maybe take a test or whatnot. Next Friday comes up, Jay Massey's going to get week 2. Now, Jay Massey's feeling great. Jay Massey may even think I'm on the other side loading week 2, right then and there, whatever Jay Massey wants to think. And we're billing automatically. So every day we've got hundreds of people being billed. We've got people being released content to. And that's what I mean by automated systems. That's just one way on the other side. So we teach people how to do that kind of stuff at Automation Clinic. But it's the same thing. It's having assets out there like real estate building cash flow for you. But the difference is they're students, students on the other side. And I guess the tangible thing in the middle is the information.
Indeed. Very important. Just so everyone knows, I do have a PhD, public high school diploma. So that's kind of how that works.
I like that.
And I find that interesting. You need results more than you need and I tend to call degrees receipts these days. It's your proof of purchase. You did go, you were there. However, I find it so commonplace that, everybody's got, my degree's in this, but it has nothing to do with what I'm doing today. That is like the common story over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, don't confuse being educated with being schooled. Those are two different things. Schooling and education are two different things. And what you are hearing Jermaine talk about today, and by the way, I meant him, not me, even though we have the same name. What you are hearing him talking about today is education. And education has the ability to change your world in so many different ways. And, whether that be music or in this case, automationclinic.com, teaching people how to get their message out and do it in an automated fashion. I'm the new guy to the whole online thing. I've been doing real estate for a number of years. I'm just now figuring out that there's value in the information and everything that we've done across all the, multiple states, and learning how to do this. This podcast is a result of those types of things, going, hey, let's try it and see what happens. I don't know. Maybe someone will like it. And it turns out that people are listening like you, which I totally appreciate. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Because I can remember the first time I looked and I was like, oh my God, there was 100 downloads. That means 100 people are listening. Now it's obviously more than that, but the point is I can remember all of those things. And every business starts somewhere. And I hope you're hearing that. Every business starts somewhere. Where you start is not necessarily where you stay. But what's important is that you do get started, and you'll develop more skill sets along the way. That's really what it comes down to. But it always starts with who you are and your passion. And definitely when it comes to real estate, who you are is key. The greatest thing, one of the greatest joys that I'm experiencing right now is, many of you know, we spend, especially in our U.S. assets, we spend a lot of time housing inner city youth. What if I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm talking to Jermaine Griggs today, but what if in one of the apartment buildings right now is the next, Jermaine Griggs, is the next Bill Gates, is the next Michael Jordan, is the next whatever, and in a small way, because we create a clean, safe, affordable living environment, they have the ability to go to the school that they want to go to and be able to get exposure to something that's a little bit nicer. It makes me feel good. Every business has something like that behind it, and this is just a call for you to go find yours. Now, I'm curious, before we end here, is there anything that you think every person who's looking at creating business, looking at getting started, but maybe they're feeling a little afraid, a little scared, a little gun shy, a little something, what is it that you say that everybody's got to know that's possible for them in terms of getting things started, developing cash flow, and making business happen?
That's a good question. So something that everyone should know, besides just not schooling, I don't want to use that word, educating themselves in just sales, marketing, and buying books of that nature, and listening to podcasts and things like that. Probably, I would say, well, you got to get things done, but it doesn't have to be you. You don't have to be the one doing the thing that needs to get done. So probably developing the ability to manage projects, which is a new answer for me, but that's what I've been doing for the last few years. Is really I got Tony Robbins' program on managing projects and things like that, and we've done well. We've built software programs that can teach people how to play any song out there, and to do that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a web designer, but you have to be able to manage projects. So I think that probably is something that every business person can benefit from. There are lots of free tools out there that allow you to manage virtual projects and teams. There's a lot of free reading out there. Basecamp HQ is a nice platform for managing projects, and the founders of Basecamp also have a book. I think 37 Signals is that company, and I really like that company because they're a bootstrap company. They're not like the average Silicon Valley, burn through $10 million and get bought for $1 billion. I mean, I would love to be able to burn through $10 million, not make sales, and get bought for $1 billion. I mean, that's a great model,
right?
But it's not the typical. As a disclaimer, but being able and not just projects. I mean, when you think of project manager, it sounds like a corporate job or something like that. It's really not that. Just being able to manage an outcome. This is what I want. This is why I want it, and now I'm starting to sound like Tony Robbins. But then here are the steps that have to happen. So now when you list out all the steps that you think have to happen, and you're not going to have all the steps like Massey said, but just, list out what you got to do to get started. Then you got to say, okay, there's some things here I can do. There's some things here maybe I can learn relatively easy. And then there's some things here that can be leveraged by somebody else that has already been there, done that, has the resources, technology to make it happen. And then there's some things here I can outsource, and that's where I did well. I went to sites like Odesk, VWorker, which is now freelancer.com. And there is a global marketplace out there now. So there's no reason you're sitting there transcribing an audio, and there's some people that have done it. I've been guilty of that, just for lack of knowledge. 10 years ago, I'm sitting there transcribing an interview. And even 10 years ago, there were transcription services around. Now you can upload your file and have someone, you can be making their day in a remote part of the world. You're making their day because the income they're getting from it, even if it's just 50 cents a minute or whatever it is, for your audio file, $30 to have it transcribed, whereas it would have taken you, 5 hours, 6 hours to do it. So just thinking where you can be replaced, what things can be leveraged, what things you do want to take on. Now, the things I do take on tend to have to do with the marketing. I don't mind being a copywriter because I've built up those skills to write good ads and copy, and there's leverage there for me. Make one ad, and I can repeat that thing and put it on Facebook, Google, Yahoo, Mail, offline, online. There's leverage, so I don't mind doing that. I don't mind doing marketing processes and systems that are I got some systems that are 5, 6 years old that my buddies are still, they're on my list and they're getting to right now. I don't mind doing that kind of stuff. But the things that are perishable or quick that won't bring anything to the bottom line immediately, or I can't see it or track it to some kind of ROI, outsource. Being good at that and just being good at managing the whole thing, and that's what I'm calling project management. It's a project that needs to get done by a finite date. Here are the elements, the people, the resources that need to happen, and just being good at that and being goal-oriented, project-oriented, outcome-oriented, saying, here's what I need, here's how it's going to get done, and sticking to it. You may change course, not sticking to it in that sense, but getting started, letting it take its course, seeing how it works, and then course-correcting later, right? And I'll leave you with this book, Psycho-Cybernetics, and this is where I learned that our brain, our mind, we're like a servo mechanism. The closest to one is your thing on the wall. What do you call it? Thermometer, right? You tell it that you want the room to be at 70 degrees. That's comfortable for you. And what it does, it first evaluates the situation, and that's the company that just got bought by $3 billion, that little thermometer thing. I wish I thought of that. But anyway, we digress. It evaluates the situation. It may say, well, it's 65 degrees here, so we got to turn on the heat. Then it may say, oh, it's 75 degrees in here. We got to turn on the air. We got to turn off the air, and it keeps you on course. A rocket, they can push the button on the rocket, and I don't believe in, war and all that stuff for no reason. They push the button on the rocket, and you don't even have to aim it. How do you aim for another country? You don't aim, but the rocket just knows where to go, and it corrects course, and then another concept, if you just change the nose of an airplane 1 degree, you can cause it to instead of ending up in New York, from California to New York, it will end up like way up in Maine or something like that. So that's the difference of focus, planning, but then also being flexible, course correcting, you know, and so that's what I would leave you with, just being a manager of projects and outcomes and things like that, and you'll see how amazingly easy it is to get things done, and that's really what it is, getting things done. Jay Massey can go from real estate to teaching it back and forth from this country to the next because he gets things done. And I believe there's three types of people: those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that are wondering what just happened. You can't be a wonderer. You're on this podcast, so I doubt you're a wonderer. You don't want to be a watcher. Watching it happen is easy. You know, girl, Beyonce did her thing. No, be Beyonce. And make things happen. And that's what I'll leave you guys with. Thank you, Jay Massey.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed this particular interview, because I know that I did. And it's amazing how many things are similar. It's amazing what you can learn just in a few short minutes, either on your commute to work or jogging, whatever it is you're doing right now. I am definitely glad that there are so many entrepreneurs that have so many lessons to share so that we can all go out there and become bigger, better entrepreneurs. I know right now I'm looking at the book title, Cycle Cybernetics, going, I probably should go get that one, because he mentioned one I hadn't read. And I'm like, okay, that's a hint, Jay. Go move at the speed of instruction and get it done. So I'm hoping that you've enjoyed this particular episode. And you know what? Remember to go out there and make things happen. I'll talk to you guys soon. Until next time.
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the CashFlow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, CashFlowDiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cashflow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.